means that many theories could stand up. It's not easy to dispose of any of them, to be honest with you. So there is a chance it could have been a police officer, an ordinary man on the street, or indeed, as some have argued, even a woman on the street. It could have been Jill the Ripper. And I respect people's theories. That's one of the fascinating things of working in the sphere of crime history research, is the way people craft theories. And sometimes they maybe hang on to them a little too preciously. But the way they are crafted and put together, working out that the times the suspect could have been there, their motivations, I think that's fascinating. But this is very much, it's my view, and it's shared by a few others, and it's shared by a few of the doctors at the time. Now, with all this distance of time, it's very easy to just say, oh, I wouldn't believe that, and I wouldn't believe this, or I do believe, any of the views expressed at the time. But the doctors that had the chance to examine the victims of Jack the Ripper, a number of them expressed the view that the killer demonstrated medical knowledge. Now, I know that there are some doctors out there, and Lord knows I've spoken at many conferences that look at the history of medicine, and I have spoken to a huge variety of medical professionals in my profession as a historian. And some will have it couldn't possibly have been a doctor to commit that horrible crime. But others that stop and they actually consider it, well, let's think about this. The doctors at the time, some of them said, yes, it showed medical knowledge. They're not trying to say, oh, it couldn't possibly be. If you look at it, there's a good chance. What's Jack the Ripper doing? He's removing organs. I mean, for example, he removes a uterus. He takes away a kidney. Now, a kidney it's surrounded by subcutaneous fat, and it's soft. I mean, if you've been to a butcher's shop, you'll have seen a pig's kidney there. Well, this is a human kidney, a human body. And to try and remove that with skill in the dark and at speed is quite a remarkable thing, quite a skill. And if you look at the pictures and the analysis of the victims of Jack the Ripper, these are not people that are just cut to pieces, and they're not a body that's all minced up. The cuts there, yes, there are multiple cuts. There's horrible wounds to the torso and the genital area, areas cut away. But you can see that as showing some medical knowledge rather than some animalistic destruction of the victim. So, if we are going to believe that there is some medical knowledge demonstrated in the murders of Jack the Ripper, then I think that cuts out an awful lot of what I would call man on the street or woman on the street suspects, because they simply didn't have the skill. They may have had the mental state where they had a reason to hate women, prostitutes, or their victims, but maybe many of them didn't have the skill to do it, and also didn't have access to a knife that was capable of doing this. You see, a blade used on an animal, for example, in an abattoir, is usually cutting into an animal that's already dead. To joint it up to make the beads, etc. But when a body is alive, the muscles will contract around a blade. And this means that if you're using quite a thin or a lower quality blade, it can in fact snap off in the body. You'll see this with soldiers, say, going in with bayonets during the First World War. The blades could snap off in the bodies. So I think we need to be careful. I think personally, and this is my view, and it's shared by others, that it would have required a medical blade, and I believe that it would have required some medical knowledge.
Now, James out here has mentioned that he's heard a theory about Arthur Conan Doyle could have been Jack the Ripper. And then, what about the letters sent? Were they from Jack the Ripper or for somebody else?
First of all, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. I think he's what I would call a celebrity suspect. And you can find that there are a number of them that have been named over the years. Even Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence, yes? Royalty. I personally don't feel that they are suspects that I would pursue. But that is my point of view. I don't disrespect anybody's research. It's worthwhile looking at them and consider. I just don't think Sir Arthur Conan Doyle fits the profile. Have a look at criminal profiling. Think about it. Is this man capable? And I personally, as a man who's enjoyed the adventures of Sherlock Holmes and the biography of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I just don't feel it in my bones, and it doesn't convince me. But it's an interesting theory.
Interesting.
But the letters. Now, letters are interesting. And there are numerous instances over the years of letters being involved in murder investigations, you know. Sometimes they are, and mostly, they are sent by hoaxers. And infamously in Great Britain, the Yorkshire Ripper murders of the 1970s and 80s in Great Britain, they had cassette tapes that they said, it's made by a man with a Wearside accent. And it put the police off the scent of the true Yorkshire Ripper, who had a Yorkshire accent. And it was Peter Sutcliffe. And he was dismissed because, no, it can't be him. He hasn't got a Wearside accent. So these are dangerous things. In 1888, I don't think the police had ever received anything like the number of letters they had for the crimes of Jack the Ripper. You have to remember, this is the first modern serial killer that really captured the public's imagination. It appeared in magazines, newspapers, chapbooks. It's a conversation on the street. They called it the Autumn of Terror. So, people did. They started sending letters, some saying that they knew who Jack the Ripper was, they suspected it, and some misguided souls even wrote in saying, I am Jack the Ripper. And in fact, that is how we get the name, because a letter was sent. It's known as the Dear Boss letter to the Central News Agency in London. Now, before this letter was received, the 2 or 3 murders before, they were mostly referring to the Whitechapel murderer, or they called him the Whitechapel fiend, the Whitechapel killer. When this letter, written in red ink, was received, it was addressed, Dear Boss, and words to effect that I'm down on whores and I shan't quit until I get buckled. You know, I saved some of their blood and I would have written in it, but it all went gloopy, so I write in red ink. I'm going to cut the next one's ears off just for jolly, haha, this kind of stuff. But the letter, the original Dear Boss letter, was signed Jack the Ripper. And that is what really captured the public's imagination. They're used to Jacks. They're used to Jolly Jack Tar, Jack-o'-lanterns, Spring-heeled Jack. These are named. Jack was the everyman character. Now, it's thought that that letter was actually written by a reporter. So a reporter gave the name to the world. And it worked. It really captured the imagination. Jack the Ripper, a name that still echoes around the halls of infamy to this very day. So I think we can discount that very first letter, that gave the name Jack the Ripper. I think we can discount an awful lot of the letters that were sent to public figures, newspapers, and the police. But if there is one letter that I think might have been sent by Jack the Ripper, it is the one that has the return address of From Hell. And the letter was placed in a small box, a cardboard box, which contained half a human kidney. And it was, with the letter and the kidney, dropped off for a man by the name of George Lusk, who was the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Because many folks in Whitechapel believed the police were not doing enough, they banded together in this committee to patrol the streets after dark to see if they could track down Jack the Ripper. So it's the chairman of that committee. He's got the box. He opens it. You can imagine the horror of seeing half a human kidney in there. And this letter, the return address From Hell, and it in effect says, Dear Mr. Lusk, I send you half a kidney, the other half, the writer of the letter claims to have eaten it. and he signs his name, Catch Me When You Can, Mr. Lusk. Now, what is intriguing...
Now, Neil,
yes.
We need to go for break, so we're going to be off for about 5 minutes. So if you want to get a cup of tea or coffee or something and just kick back, we'll be back in 5 minutes with Neil R. Storey talking about Jack the Ripper and a few other things here for the next half an hour. So make sure you tell your friends to tune in to the show. We'll be back here shortly.
Maggot was a biker and drove his motorcycle very fast. Drove a big chop Harley with a gang color jacket and ran down citizens for laughs. He had an old lady named Petula who packed an automatic 45 gun. They had just come up from California where they'd shot 6 cops for fun. Jake, he thought it was the best there was, as down the interstate he saw, till the day he tangled with the county sheriff who they all called 104. It was late on a Thursday evening, and Jake, he was feeling kind of mean, cause he just run out of his favorite drug, the one called amphetamine. So we sauntered up to Petula, and it said, say, baby, let's split. There's a little gas station on down the road that might be fun to hit. So they drove up to the station, and they both jumped off of Jake's ride. They were up to derision at Jake's decision as they both saw to the inside. The attendant, he was an old man, and he didn't think it very funny. When Petula pulled out that great big gun, said, honey, give me all your money. Well, the old man opened up the cash drawer, and Jake grabbed the money and ran. With Petula out the door to the big chop Harley that was parked on the center kickstand. Then they headed out for the 4-lane, and they thought it was lots of fun.
Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Night Dreams Talk Radio Network brings you the World Paranormal News with James Creechbaum. Now, the latest news.
I'm James Creechbaum with the Paranormal and World Changes News. In Russia's far north, a lone group of Neanderthals may have been the last of their kind. Near the Arctic Circle, a group of Neanderthals may have persisted for thousands of years after the rest of their species disappeared. One team of researchers says they've found such a case in the site of Bizovaveya and Russia's